Hey guys, this is Dave from Otaku, and today I want to make a short video about the importance of setting small daily goals. Cool. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are like me, where you're a busy adult, whether you're going to school or working, and you really just don't have time for Japanese or any other language learning process to be your full-time job. And that's okay, you know? We all have other priorities in our life that are important that we take care of, on top of doing things like learning a language. Now for me, I'm the first to admit that Japanese is definitely not my job. It is an important hobby to me, one that I take seriously, but that's pretty much all it is, right? I'm not getting paid for it. It's not my life. If I didn't learn Japanese, if I didn't learn a language other than English, it wouldn't affect my life or my well-being or anything for that matter, really. So you kind of got to think of it that way. However, if you really want to learn a language, it takes time, it takes dedication, and you really got to work towards it. So how do you do that? For me, it's been about setting small daily goals, right? And when I say small daily goals, I mean small, right? So there are people out there who are like, I'm gonna read 100 pages in a single day, every single day for the rest of forever, or I'm gonna watch, 30 episodes of anime, or I'm gonna immerse for 12 hours a day. And for most of us, that's just not possible. It's just not feasible, and it's not something we'd even enjoy, right? So you gotta find where your limit is. So I want you to think about what your worst day looks like. Maybe not your absolutely worst, but think of a sick day, or think of a very busy day at work or school, or a day that you know you're gonna have a paper due or something, right? We have other commitments as adults, but that doesn't mean that you can't fit in some small goals into your day, right? So for me, I line it up to 3-ish different things. However, you could include more if you wanted to, depending on what your goals are. So I line it up to how many new cards I'm gonna do a day, how many shows I'm gonna watch a day, and how many pages I'm gonna read a day. Now, let's get into this a little bit more. So how many new cards I learn a day? I am pretty steady at learning 10 new cards a day. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I've ever missed that. I've missed that goal lots of times. However, I always do my Anki reps. I haven't missed a day of Anki reps in 800 days, actually. So for me, making sure that I get my Anki reps done at a minimum every single day is my absolute minimum goal, right? That's what we're talking about, minimum goals. So getting those Anki reps done and then mining 10 new words is my goal, if I can. Now, if I miss that goal, it's not the worst thing ever. Do I ever really go above 10 words? Not mostly. Sometimes I'll do 12, maybe 15, depending on the show I'm watching, if there was a lot of really good words that I saw, but that's really up to you. Now, when I say minimum goals though, I mean minimum. Don't make your minimum goal, I have to mine 20 words a day, I have to do 2 hours of Anki a day. That's not a minimum, right? That's a stretch goal. So, and I know there's a lot of people out there who do their 20 cards a day, who are going through the Tango decks or going through the core deck, and they're trying to do 20 cards a day, and that's fine. But if you have a day where that's not happening, then it's not happening. Getting your Anki reps done should, however, be your bare minimum. You want to try to not miss an Anki day if you have to, or if you're on vacation, or if you're using that Migaku vacation add-on, then that's great, right? But for the most part, try to make doing your Anki cards your daily minimum, and then maybe adding 5 to 10 more cards. If you can't do the 5 to 10, that's fine. Cool. For me, I watch a minimum of 3 shows per day. Now, I've gotten a little creative with that sometimes. I will watch shows while I'm at the gym, while I'm on the Stairmaster, or I will watch shows while I'm walking at work, while taking a break. So there's ways you can get around this. Now, 3 shows a day for me is good because that's an hour of audio-visual immersion. And I think that's good. It's probably a little bit more than an hour, right? I figure 25 minutes an episode, but that for me is doable with my life. Thankfully, my wife also enjoys watching Japanese content, so she will watch it with me. And the thing that I've learned to sacrifice is we typically watch them with English subtitles. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I have trained myself not to look at those English subtitles. And at this point, I've gotten really, really good at it, where I'll forget sometimes there's even subtitles on a video. And you can do that too if you are with somebody like a spouse or a family member who wants to watch anime with you, or dramas or anything else. That might be a great way to be able to fit in a little extra immersion. Now, That 3 shows a day for me is very reasonable, but maybe that's not for you. Maybe you think you can get 4 or 5 in, right? It really depends on your situation. However, 6 hours a day of visual audio immersion isn't reasonable for every single day. So make sure you're not talking about your stretch goal and your minimum goals. So I said my goal is to read X number of pages today. Right now, for me, it's 10 pages a day. I can usually pretty easily fit 10 pages of a book a day into my life. Now the reading portion of it, maybe you should look at it as time versus pages. For me, it takes maybe a half hour or so to read 10 pages of a book. Right now, I'm reading the 3rd Harry Potter book in Japanese, and it really also depends on the book. Now, if you're at the stage where you're still reading manga, or if you really enjoy reading manga, I still read manga all the time. I used to limit it to number of chapters, right? So I would try to read 3 chapters a day. At one point, I had a goal of 5 chapters a day, and I almost never made that goal. So like, for example, you got to think about what you could actually fit into your day and what's reasonable on your bad days. So if you're in the beginning stages, reading is really, really hard, right? If you're still working on Tango N5 or if you're still working on kanji, you're not gonna get much reading immersion. Maybe instead you should focus on your audiovisual immersion and making sure that you put the subtitles on in Japanese so that you can read along with that. So maybe that's a lot more reasonable. But if you're at the point where you've finished Tango N5 and now you're trying to read your first manga, which I suggest over reading a book first, I'll make another video about that, then maybe that would be a lot better for you. So if that's the case, maybe try making your minimum goal a chapter of manga a day, or if that's too difficult, half a chapter or 10 pages, right? Whatever works for you, but making sure that you get a little bit of reading immersion every single day is just the biggest thing that can help you, right? There's been so many studies recently and in the past about extensive reading, and a lot of information has been coming about that recently. I'll throw a video in the description below, a video series that I really like about extensive reading, and I have to agree that reading seems to be the thing that helps me the most, helps me grow the most. Cool. And there are other things you can set in for minimums. If you're somebody who really wants to get really good at reading news, then maybe you could talk about reading X number of news articles a day, or X number of NHK Easy news articles a day, right? It's basically what your interests are. Maybe you want to play video games every day in Japanese or in your target language, and that's fine too. You can definitely do that. So you can set for like a minimum amount of time, so it really depends on what your goals are. However, just make them reasonable. Think about your worst day. If you go above these minimum goals, that's great. So to cap all that down, my personal minimum goals at the level that I am at, somebody who's been studying Japanese for more than 2 years, I try to reach a minimum of doing my at very minimum, my Anki reps, and then I try to add at least 10 new words a day. I watch 3 episodes of a show a day, and I read at least 10 pages of a book a day. That way I know that I'm getting that basic level of immersion, and if I go above and beyond that, that's awesome. But that'll get me to 2 to 3 hours of active Japanese study a day. So do I sit down and watch that all at one time or read that all at one time? The answer is most of the time, no. I don't even do my Anki reps at one time. I split up everything. And so let's talk about the tools and the ways that you can set this up to make your life a little bit better. So getting that kind of active time into your life without giving up on a lot of other things in your life takes a little bit of creativity. And thankfully, most of us nowadays have smartphones. So that can really, really help you out in the long run as to how to get this extra immersion in. One, let's go ahead and say it right now. Try to get rid of social media on your phone that isn't related to learning Japanese or your target language. Now, don't get me wrong, social media is not a bad thing. It's great to connect with family and friends and pictures and all that stuff. However, a lot of us spend a lot of time just scrolling on social media, wasting complete and utter time. Now, you could be using that mindless time for the things you actually want to do, even if that's not your learning a target language. But for me, most of the time it is, right? So let's call this toilet time immersion, right? That is a great way to get in some Anki reps or some reading time or some watching time, right? You can get a lot in 5-10 minutes at a time. And there's a lot of tools that can help you do that. Obviously, the first and biggest one is Anki Mobile. Anki Mobile is an app that you can put on your phone so that you can do your reps anytime you'd like, right? So personally, I go on a daily walk most days, and I will actually do my reps while I'm walking on my phone. and just flipping through with my headphones on, right? I find that to be a great way to be able to get a lot of my reps done throughout the day. You know, I do an average of 150 Anki reps a day, and I'm able to get them done in about 20, maybe 30 minutes max. Adding my new words, I always do on my computer because usually I mind those words, whether it was used to be with Morphman. Nowadays, I almost exclusively use the Migaku browser extension, and I'll be making a video about that in the future because I love it. And it saves me so much time, and it's great to be able to mine that way, but I'll talk about that later. But using Anki on your phone is a great way to be able to fit in a lot of reps. You could do it on your breaks at work or at school, right? You can do it while you're going on a walk or at the gym. It's really up to you. You can do it while you're sitting on the toilet time immersion, right? And get through 20 or 30 reps easily, right? So being creative about that. Now, there are other things you can do on your phone too. You could be reading manga, for instance. There is a great app that I absolutely love called Tachiyomi, and Tachiyomi has several Japanese extensions for it where you can go on your phone and read raw manga. Combine this with an OCR app, such as Kaku, and you can absolutely read manga on your phone and be able to find translations. You can even take screenshots so that you can sentence mine that later if it's something that you like to do. And it is just very, very helpful. Cool. What about phone games? There's a great app called Quo. I'm not sure if that's what it's called for real or how to pronounce it, but I've always called it Quo. And it allows you to access the Japanese Play Store. As well as the Chinese and Korean one, I believe. But I've used it to download several Japanese phone games so that I can just play games on my phone in language, right? And a lot of them even have voice acting, which is awesome. You can also watch anime on your phone, right? You can use the Netflix add-on. There's several websites that you can use, and there's also news apps. It's pretty much up to you. But I'll definitely have a bunch of resources down in the description below. But it's all about being creative, being honest with yourself, and finding that time. So set your daily minimum goals, hit those minimum goals. If you miss a day, it's not the end of the world. You know, just strive for those things. And if you're the type of person who can do, 100 new cards a day, and you have the time to do, 16 hours a day worth of immersion, then that's awesome. But most of us, it's just unreasonable to try to do that, right? We can't all Matt versus Japan, which is apparently is a verb now. And so I want you to think about those kind of things. The biggest compliment that I've received over the last couple of years is my ability to stay consistent. And I accept that compliment humbly, and I really try to make my consistency my number one factor when learning a language, right? I do these minimum goals every day I can, and that's what you should strive for as well. And also, let's talk about a couple of other things real quick. You don't learn a language in Anki, you learn it in immersion. So get your reading, watch your shows, find things you enjoy to do, and do those things. And don't worry about comparing yourself to others, right? You may have gotten way further than me in the amount of time that I have, and you maybe didn't get as far as me in the time that I have, and that doesn't matter, right? It's your own personal journey, and we all have our own journeys. So anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for today. If you like the video, go ahead and like the video. If you have any questions, go ahead and put in the comments below, and yeah, later.